let me restart this again. Okay, so basically, in Intellij, as I mentioned, we can basically set up these breakpoints, and then once we run the program, once we debug the program, sorry, we don't want to run it. So if you want to run it, that's fine, obviously. But if you're doing, I just make sure to always debug it because then I can always use breakpoints, basically. And we should be able to see here my program is running. Yeah, there we go. And it stops at this breakpoint. Right, now, do you see this pop-up window?
Yep, it's
Okay.
all showing now.
Okay, perfect. So not only can we now stop at this point and see the state of all our variables as shown, but now we can kind of go through here, and with my companies, I can then basically do any evaluation on it I want. I can check the size, I can stream, and then filter. I mean, I know this Lambda stuff is not, we haven't gone over it yet, but you can do all sorts of basically whatever you want, right? Get company.
This is run separately from the code, or is this after the breakpoint? These
This
changes are
is run
made.
on the breakpoint. So
Okay.
this isn't run on like, yeah. So this is run. I believe now don't but I believe this is run on the same JVM as your actual code is running,
Ah, okay.
because sometimes what we see happening is if you like read into a file, a you like read into a file, it will have like an effect on the code. So that's also important to know actually. So company country dot size length is greater than 10. Right, and I'm actually running, and this is super useful for me because when I want to figure out how to run something or why something isn't working, I can just keep running it over here. And then you
Yeah.
can step through the program. So for example, this error we were having before, right? So I'm just going through the first loop, and I can see everything down here, how everything's been initialized, and if it's, what country we're on. And I can see that your array of string, which, oh, we've renamed that as well. That's great. I was going to say we need to rename that, so it's really good that we did. We can now see that when we went in here, I was seeing the null pointer, but I wasn't seeing it from any of these because I actually saw correctly that this company country split, had these values. So
Yeah.
then what you can do is you can go inside one of these, and it won't if I hit next here, if I hit F8, it won't automatically go back. It won't automatically go into here, even though it's being called here. It will just go
Yeah.
to the next line because obviously in Java everything's built layer on layer on layer on layer. So it won't go to every layer unless you sort of specify that you want it to. So for example, and then I could put a breakpoint here, and then when I hit F8, it will go into this, and I can evaluate this. And this is where I found out, and I saw that this was the line causing the problem, and then I was like, okay, well, let's check this, and then I checked this value, and it was not. But now it works because we fixed that.
Cool.
So I recommend playing around with this. It's kind of, it might take you a little while to sort of get up to grips with it, but I think it's insanely useful, and it's just like, because the whole like logging everything with system out and then amount of port, it's like it gets really frustrating, especially when you have to like keep compiling things and it's just not very flexible. Okay, cool. So let's go through, and I think main we can mostly leave main. It's not closing. Here we go. Okay, so border calculation. So the first thing I kind of want to go over is this. So first of all, with here, we're seeing this little warning, and this is basically telling us that we're using a map that hasn't got any values specified. So we should always just do that, because then that problem's fixed. Because if I then basically, like when you get border return down here, it doesn't know what the actual values are, and so it's just the get is actually just the get of object.
Yeah.
Whereas if we do this, string integer, then the get is abstract integer. So it's just enforcing. Yeah. Okay, cool. And we don't need to cast it as int anymore. Cool. Also, one thing with this, I think you're going for kind of the right approach, but every time we call border return, we actually initialize the map. Right? So every time we call it, because basically what we would prefer is to have this initialized once,
Okay.
and then when we call it, we just return that value. So for example, we could have, there are various different ways of doing this. Let's just call this public static integer border map. Now, one of the ways of doing this we could use is basically if border map is empty, it's not empty, then we return border map, right? So if it's already populated, we return the populated map. Otherwise, we populate it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is the reason we do that literally just for efficiency?
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's just also good to make sure. Yeah, I mean, in this instance, it doesn't matter, right? But just good practice to do it usually because, yeah. And there's another way of doing it actually, which is something called a static initializer. So it's kind of like a constructor, but basically it's only run once. So this is actually the way I would do it. Is we could put this all in here, and then when this class, like when the classes are loaded during like class loading, which is a JVM concept, it will run all of this, and then we can just do return. We don't even need to have this, we can just have border map. But that's kind of a bit more. There are some potential issues with this, so it might be better if we just do it the other way for now.
What are those potential issues?
So basically, the way if there's like an issue, so for example, if I was to do like static object null, and then equals map. I'm not sure if exactly this, but it basically would throw an error and it wouldn't really be clear what went wrong. Like if there's an error is happening in class loading, it's like really complicated to figure out what's going on.
Oh, okay.
So you kind of want to make sure that stuff going in here. I think in this case it's completely fine, but it's just in the future if we were to use this all the time and then we ran into this problem, it's kind of annoying because it's like super difficult to debug sometimes. Okay. Yeah, so let's talk about this data structure here. So as far as I can see, these are the number of countries that they border.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Poland 6. So these are like hard. Okay, and so where are we using this? So the amount of borders, and then remove one as cannot trade with itself.
The secondary statement is if they're a limited company, they can trade with bordered companies.
Yeah. So what I meant by this is, in this list we have, oh it's not in here, but we have these companies, and I kind of wanted the companies we had, and we could actually see which other countries we could trade with. So I know this isn't a great data set, so maybe I'll mix this up. But if I just quickly go check this out. So I know most of these are UK, but for example, if we had one like this company, for example, let me open this up in something more readable. Second, that's what I get for using custom delimiters. Here we go. So if I were to say, you know, I want to see which companies this company specifically can trade with out of these companies.
Okay.
Then I would look for, I don't remember the specific rules, but I would basically look for, yeah, so the company origin, I would say, okay, this one's from the United Kingdom, and so it can trade with these other limited companies, or it can trade with this company, and then it would actually count them. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So I can understand maybe that wasn't completely clear because it wasn't entirely intuitive. So what I think I'll do in the future is I think I will mix these up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'll add some like more France's, Germany's, Netherlands, whatever, to make it more like realistic because I didn't realize quite how many of them were the UK.
Isn't that what my thing does that? Like when I go through, because it loops through each company and then gives it, puts like a
Yeah,
amount of people they can trade with.
this is actually just it's using the amount of borders to calculate. Like I don't contains.
Amount of borders is zero if they're not a limited company. So
Yeah, well, in that case, it calculates it correctly, right?
yeah, so it should
But
be
in
okay,
the
right?
case where it can trade abroad, if it's a company from the UK, it will just look, even though we have no companies from Ireland, it's still factoring it into the equation.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's okay. They actually had to be companies for that. Oh, I see.
And
But it's just like a broad statement, like
yeah, and then so we would look through companies from the UK, and then we'd see how many other companies there are in Ireland, in the Channel Islands, in France, and that are also limited companies.
I see.
And from
Yeah,
there we could then
I think I
calculate
need
a
a bigger
total.
data set for that.
Yeah, well, it's fine. We can go through and review this, and it might even be better to do things step by step because then it's kind of clearer, and we don't go too far down a road that's not. So once again, I think it's probably best if we specify that this is a company, then we can specify that this. We should try and keep these lowercase as well because then when we name the class like this, cool. We don't have to worry about.
Could you replace all the variables at once?
Replace.
You just changed company, the name of the
Yes.
objects.
Okay, sorry, I just did that without noticing. Okay, so there's, like in IntelliJ, you can do Shift F6, and it will rename, you can rename method names, you can rename, and it will, anytime they're used. So for example, this is used over here as well, and that was, I don't want to go over, there's so many hotkeys you can use in here, but that was, you can either use Control and click, or you can use Control and B. So if I change this here to get trading partner count, then I just click here, and it's also been changed here, so we changed everywhere it's used.
Okay, cool.
That's super useful. Okay, so order calculation. Company to string contains, and now this is easier now because wait, this is country. Oh, this again, just make sure this is lowercase. Get trading partner count. Yeah, so what we're doing. Okay, I see. Yeah. So. Yeah, okay, so what we're actually doing here is kind of unnecessarily complicated because we've already got our company here. At this point, we've got a company, and we've got the company country, and we've got the company dot... Wait, get company... Wait, is there no company name? Oh, okay, well, we need to add the get company name as well. So, I will type this. Sorry, I'll try to stop using so many hotkeys. Company name. And now we can actually just use both of these rather than having to split them with the toString.
Yeah.
Because if we actually look at the toString is using these values already. So we're putting something into the values, and then I want to use this. So this is cool. I can draw on the board. Like, it's just kind of, you can see that, right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I can see.
So, yeah. So we're putting stuff in here, and then we're getting it out here, and then we're splitting it to get it back into this state. If that makes sense. So it's kind of circular. So what we can actually do is just we don't need to do the split at all, and we can just go here and
Use the get returns.
yeah, and then this will make things a lot neater as well. Because you can get rid of this. Oh, I see. You want to replace the... Yeah. Okay, so this is also good. Let's keep this for a minute. So because you want to replace that, that is important. But now here, because this makes things a lot clearer, we can write, I think this is company name first.
Yeah, that's so much more readable for like someone who's not seen it before.
Yeah, exactly. And then get trading partner account. Get country. Yeah, so now we need to address this because you still do want to replace these like fucking quotations, right? It's important that we replace this. So what we can do is the only time we ever, because these are final, right? We understand what final is. It's like we can't change the value once it's set. Like we can't reassign it. So if, for example, if I try and add a setter here, it's going to give me an error because it's like, oh wait, that should be void. Because it's like, cannot reassign a value to a final variable. So the only time we ever actually set this is in here. And then what we can do is, because we only put things in one way, we can make sure that things are always formatted when they go in. So we can create a private method here for clean company name, something similar. It can be called format company name or whatever. Company name, and then return. And we just used the same code you wrote. Because now, previously what we had to do is we were populating the company with bad data, and then every time we got it out, we had to fix it.
Yeah.
Now we're just, when we populate it, we fix it, and then we only have to fix it one time.
Cool. It's company country, right? Not company name.
Oh, is it the country? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we should actually, yeah. But for now, let's just do company country. CSVs are pretty complicated because there's loads of issues that come up. But for now, let's just do this. Cool. And then that issue is also fixed. Get trading partner account. And let me check because when I wrote this, because I ran this the other day, so there's results here. And the results was empty. Okay. Let's try running this now. Nice. Here's some people being attacked on my street. That's okay.
Yeah, it's just how long does it take you to get used to Linux? I was thinking of moving over. I'm getting a new desktop in a few months.
It took me like a while, to be honest. Like, so the first year I used Linux, I had like a partition on my Windows machine, and I only made it 30 gigabytes because I thought I'd just play around with it. And then I ended up using that partition for like a year and a half. And I think that's a good way of doing it, obviously, because then you can just do all your dev stuff on Linux, and you can do all your, games or whatever, your leisure time on Linux. And I think it's good to get started because just like Ubuntu is so easy to use, you can just use it like Windows basically. And then as you kind of get more and more familiar with the command line, it's just super useful for dev stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna dual boot my next computer.
Yeah.
Current computers are giving up on me. All the hardware's failing.
And with my old laptop, it was like completely fucked, and then I installed Linux and it actually ran fine for like a long time. I think Windows has a lot of bloat on it.
Yeah, it does for sure.
Okay. I don't know, this isn't actually working for me. So, because my results file is empty. Let me just make sure this is... No, it says this is populated. Okay, no, it is here. I don't know why it's not showing up there. Okay, so, yeah, so this is... Oh, so all of the companies are limited as well. No, this company isn't limited. That's in West Germany. All of the UK companies are limited. Okay, this one isn't limited, but there's still 48,
Oh yeah, they were all limited.
except for this one
Yeah.
and this one. But I'll make some changes so fewer of them are limited companies to make it kind of a bit more interesting. And yeah, so this doesn't actually
Yeah,
work.
why are the non-limited ones not working?
Let's see. So let's do some debugging, and then I think we'll leave it here for today.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, so I like this. This is like this is well done. This is exactly what I would do. It's like board calculation. Have its its own static method, no consequences. Perfect. Cool. So okay. So amount of borders, amount of possible same country trades. It's 48. And it's 48, and you can't trade with yourself as well. So there's another thing to.
Yeah, that's why I removed one at the end.
So where does it say 48 in the results file? Okay, well, debugging. Okay, so companies. Now we can actually change this to be simpler before I move on. Company. Okay, country. Equals. Okay. Equals. And limited or limited. Yes. So because we're doing the same operation multiple times, I think we should extract this into its own variable. But first of all, I will change this to be company name. So get company name. And another option, something we could do here, so we could do something like private final boolean is limited. And then include it here. Oh no, not include it here, sorry. And then because we derive whether it's limited from a value we get here, we could then do this dot company this dot is limited equals company name dot contains. Sorry, 1 second. Do uppercase. So I'm basically setting this up because we're going to be using it twice, and there's no reason to perform that operation twice. So company name uppercase. This dot is limited. Equals company name uppercase.
Is there no way of making that shorter? Because I tried for a while.
You can. Okay, so this is. I don't want to make it like you can do this thing. You can use regex, so you can do.
Yeah, I've used regex before.
Oh, okay, cool. And you could do limited. And you can actually make this.
Yeah.
If you do reg, this is actually so much easier if you do regex because you can also do. Wait, I'm gonna be an asshole here. I think this should work. I'm basically saying these three are mandatory. Oh no, wait.
Yeah.
That should be
With LTD.
here. But the LTD is not. And then I can also do pattern dot case insensitive.
That just means it doesn't matter.
The case doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Then I can company name. See what's going wrong. I can't do matches. I can't do case insensitive, but that kind of sucks. Okay, whatever. Let's just do two uppercase. You can only do that when you use patterns. I don't know if you. That's like when you declare a pattern, and then.
I've not used them before.
Oh, okay. But we'll get into that. If you're familiar with variables,
Yeah.
it's super useful to know how to use them in Java. So get to that. And then we have the value here, so we don't have to worry about. Let me just do this the cleaner way instead of trying to be smart about it. And now that I'm saying it, it just includes that rather than. Okay, yeah, and then we have this value always, which is kind of useful information instead of having to check, because we'll have to check a few times presumably. You know, in the future we might want to do it again, so it's probably just useful to store it in that case. And then let's get back to this. Then we can just do is limited. Also border return. I think the name is better if it's like get border map. We should also, I won't go, but we could basically just directly reference that. It's okay, but that's maybe too much for. Let's go back to this. Okay. So now everything's like a lot more readable, right?
Yeah. I don't know why I didn't think of areas. Seeing as I used it for the delimiter, it should have kind of popped into my head.
Okay, amount of borders. Country. So, if companies.getCountry equals country, amount of possible trades plus plus. So there's 1. So yeah, that's the other. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, because we've cut. So sorry, can you explain to me how? Because I'm obviously thinking about it in the way that that wasn't. So what was like?
The first if statement is pretty much counting the amount of countries in the same country, companies in the same country. Sorry.
Okay.
So it's always going to add 1, and that's why I have the -1 at the end because they can't trade with themselves.
Okay.
For the UK one, because there's so many.
Oh,
UK,
I see. So you're counting the amount of countries it can trade with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Companies, not countries. But the companies in the same country.
Okay, but if we're adding 1, then we're assuming there's only 1 country in the same company, right?
I'm doing like the two things differently, right? Because they can a company can trade with anyone in its own country.
Yes, but here
That's what the first if loop does. Right?
I understand this, right? This if statement makes sense to me, but I don't understand why we're adding 1 here, because what I would expect is something like count countries in country, and then add that. So it would look something. It would look more like amount of same country trades plus equals. Great. You know, companies in country count like that.
Okay.
And then I don't know how you would get that. Well, I do, but like right now, you know you could. Do you store them anywhere? Or do you? So what I would first recommend doing is, we have all of these. We read all these countries in, and I would recommend. Yeah, we do have this list of companies. Okay.
Throwing it in a variable.
So we store it in a variable, so we can make this public, so we can use it elsewhere, and then you could basically loop through. For. So. And there's better ways of doing this, but for now we could just say, you know, and then loop through it. So that's how we do it with a list data structure. So we could loop through and check which countries. And then in the next review, I can talk about the different data structures we can use to make this more efficient. But I'm not gonna. Okay, so assuming, so possible same country. Okay, so then amount of borders equals get border map. Get border map. Amount. Okay. So yeah, and then we go here, and then it adds the number from here. Which
Yeah.
this is good in terms of the data structure used for the purpose. I just think the actual semantics of it are a bit off. But the actual like use of it in terms of like storing a string, correlating it to a value, and then using that's really good. Like that's well done. So and then we add that to the amount of borders. So 2 in this instance. So yeah, so we're doing it for every country, and then so each line we check for every country.
Oh, okay.
So
I should be only doing it for each
yeah,
country,
so if we change this to company, then we go here, change that to company, and we can get rid of this 4. Then we should start to see values that are more like what we would expect to see. So let's see what it outputs now. Oh, it might actually have an issue because I've got this open. So let me try again. Okay. Here we go. So now we see the values for UK companies that are limited, we have 5, and for UK's companies that are not limited, we have 0.
But on the ones that aren't limited, it's supposed to be able to trade within.
Yeah, no. So these values are still incorrect because I think their logic's a little bit messed up. But now not all of them are 48 because now we're calculating them individually. So it's step-by-step incremental improvements. But because this is getting refactored anyway into this new kind of system that we were talking about using, counting the actual number of companies rather than just the country. Like I think we'll end this here, and I'll reformat this spreadsheet so it's like basically there's more variance.
Yeah, cool.
And it's good that they're so like obviously the way this is formatted is I've just taken the first like 50 rows basically of 49 of this country data, right? Like I can I don't know where I keep it. I think it's here. Yeah, so like I don't want to open these, but like these are 85,000 lines basically. So there's fucking loads of companies, and this is why we see so many fucking quotation marks because they're ordered like according to like ASCII or Unicode values, right? So and that's why they're a bit disproportionate. But I'll fix that country data and hopefully, and then we can like now we've got a better understanding of exactly what we're doing. We can kind of go over this again whenever you're ready.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Right, grand. Yeah, I'll probably, because this isn't like a super huge change,